Welcome to another Sky Sport News online special on the Tour de France. The first rest day is upon us. We have done 9 stages of pretty amazing action. Delighted to be joined again by Del Woodford. Del, 9 stages in the books. It's been a Tour de France like no other, but it's been some pretty incredible racing as well.
Yeah, absolutely, Henry. It has been a Tour de France, different to what I expected. The racing it's almost been like watching a classic, a different style of classic every day. The speed of the race has been absolutely incredible. Of course, the race being later, the weather's been different. Nice, who would have thought the downpour that caused all the carnage on the opening stage. We haven't had the really hot temperatures in the Pyrenees, for stages that are 8 and 9. So yeah, different type of race. Riders with different form as well. I guess coming out of their lockdowns, some of the guys have come off a lot fresher and seem to be going a lot better than others. So yeah, the first 9 days has shown us quite a bit in a way.
And we finally saw Jumbo-Visma get their hands on the yellow jersey. That was talked about a lot before the tour got underway, with Primoz Roglic taking that over, Egan Bernal behind him in second. What have you made so far of the battle between Ineos and Jumbo-Visma?
Jumbo-Visma are in control of the bike race right now. They've looked good from day one. Sometimes their tactics I wonder a little bit about. They're a strong team, but I think they've used a lot of energy on some stages where they could have afforded to save a little bit. We saw Roglic isolated at a moment, I think, on stage 8. It didn't really matter. He's so good, it doesn't matter. But if something happens, and we're used to seeing in these races, Froome with Geraint Thomas, riders with teammates in the mountains. Right now, we're seeing over the mountains. We're seeing the leaders of the team and no teammates, and that's a really unusual situation, I think, in the Tour de France. So the top guys, it's the right guys at the front end, but it's just unusual not seeing the teammates. Like even today, seeing Jumbo-Visma, really the bottom of the last climb, 5 guys gone. They just all of a sudden there was 5 to 1 there. But they've been dominant. But it is a 3-week bike race, and Egan Bernal wasn't in great form going into this race in the first week. Today was the first day I've seen him actually look reasonably comfortable. Midweek in those mountains, I thought, if the pressure was really on, he could have cracked. He looked like that. He looked to be struggling. He looked to be fighting his bike a little bit, didn't look comfortable. But he's going to go into the rest day, I think, with a little bit of motivation, because he went quite well today. A little attack. Didn't have to attack, but he just did to let people know, I'm still here.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you on Jumbo-Visma. I think they've been pretty steady, but there's been a few moments as well where they've been a little bit out of position, perhaps with their train rolling through the mountains. And one of the stages early on, we saw Wout van Aert do a massive turn for Roglic when you would have expected someone like George Bennett or Robert Hessing to take over. In terms of Bernal, I think he's been sort of building steadily as well. He definitely doesn't seem to have the firepower that we're used to from an Ineos team. But I think Roglic has really ticked all the boxes so far in terms of how he's gone.
Yeah, we see that sprint today on the mountain, for the time seconds. He picked up, I think, 5 seconds, 6 seconds there, 5 seconds at the finish. So 11 seconds just like that today. They could be vital later on. He's looked really punchy. I don't think I've ever really seen him in the tours when he's riding like this ever look uncomfortable. He just always looks so relaxed, so strong and powerful. He's certainly in the box seat going into the second part of the tour after the rest day. The team, though, has probably had to improvise a little bit as well. Remember, George crashed on the first day, so he's a key man that's crashed, and he's probably had to ride a little bit out of position to protect himself, to try and recover a little bit. Dumoulin saying the other day, I'm not going quite as good as I thought, so I'll do some big pulls for you on the front. Now, maybe that's in the back of his mind. He's thinking later on after the rest day, before the next before we get into the Alps, maybe sneaking into a breakaway and pulling some time back. That would be a great move by Jumbo-Visma. That's definitely the team that's controlling the race. But now we get into the second part. The brakes will go. There'll be races within races, guys defending the young riders jersey, guys defending their position on GC, teams defending their position, and then the King of the Mountains will actually start in the last week. So there's going to be a whole lot of things happening within the race as well that will probably play into the hands of Jumbo-Visma. And, they will use those little races within the races to ride off them.
And you touched on it there, George Bennett, obviously a key part of that Jumbo-Visma team. We saw that nasty couple of crashes on stage one, and I think he admitted the other day he's still sort of recovering. He hasn't quite been there as much as you'd expect him in top form. What have you made from his impact on the tour so far?
I thought he was really impressive on the day Wout van Aert's won the stage in the crosswind. George was there. He was doing some really big turns. Now, to do that, remember, what's he weigh? It's probably about 48 kilos wringing wet. And he's up there with, sort of like the classics guys doing these turns in the crosswinds. To be in that position, to be driving the way he was, looking after Roglic the way he was, I thought then, well, he's coming back. But he has come back, and his injuries maybe aren't as bad, but those injuries take their toll. So, he's probably riding a little bit harder than he would like, right now, just in terms of how the body's reacting. But he's ridden extremely well, as the other Kiwis have as well in the race, Henry. Sam Bewley, Wagon, he won't get talked about in the race. He has a couple of times. I've heard them mention him, particularly Simon Gerrans, because you'll know him so well. But, the work he did for Adam Yates in the yellow jersey, just carrying those guys across the roads of France, protecting Adam Yates, keeping him out of the wind, and Jack Bauer doing exactly the same. So the three New Zealand riders in the race are playing a massive part. They played a massive part for their respective leaders in the first 9 stages.
Yeah, and I'm glad you touched on Jack Bauer and Sam Bewley, because, they, like you said, they did an absolutely stellar job for Mitchelton-Scott, who sort of stumbled into the yellow jersey after that penalty for Alaphilippe. Outside of Roglic and Bernal, when you look at the other sort of GC contenders, who else has sort of impressed you so far?
Podka. If he hadn't have punctured, they probably wouldn't have let him ride away on the climb the other day, so he may not have been in yellow. But a lot of people thought he got out of position in the crosswind, and that's why he was dropped. He'd actually punctured and had just made his way back to the peloton when the split happened. So he's got a couple of, well, not a couple of hundred riders, but a fair bit of traffic to get through. So he did really well to limit his losses to 120, but that 120 has been quite costly. It's not a lot in the Tour de France. It's 9 stages in. It's a long way to go. Even guys in 15th place aren't out of this bike race right yet at 2.5 minutes if they've got great legs. I think he's been the rider of the last few days for me, the way he's attacked, the explosiveness of his attacks. He's young. He's going to keep recovering well and keep doing it, but he doesn't have the team around him. Aru, out of the race today. Now, even Aru out of form is still a rider to have there for you in the mountains to look after you, but he's gone. So they're a little bit weak on firepower, but he's certainly been really impressive when it's gone uphill so far. The most impressive on the climbs, possibly apart from the ride today, Hershey. That was something else. That was a very special day on the Tour de France.
Yeah, that was an unreal effort from Hershey. I think it was 90 odd Ks by himself, soloing, and I think the highlight for everyone was just seeing his descending skills. He had a slight slip up coming down the first climb, but after that, it was just amazing to watch.
Yeah, pretty insane. Total opposites. So if you can see get them side by side, Zakarin and Hershey, how they went downhill. Zakarin on top, hands on the tops of the brakes, and the bike wobbling all over the place. It looked like the frame was a noodle, because, and it's not. It's just he was so awkward on it and not in control, and losing, being able to go uphill the way he does and losing all that time on the way down must be heartbreaking. But Hershey gave a masterclass in descending, like you say, that little bit scary at that one point. Probably the disc brakes helped him. If he had been on the rim brakes, they probably would have locked up, and he would have been into the van and into the grass. But the discs, you can sort of keep the modulation under control, and he drifted around the corner pretty well with one foot down, and then he never made a mistake after that. It was a planned move by him today as well. He wanted to get in the break. Maybe he didn't think he would be the break for so long. By himself, he might have liked some company, but he chose equipment designed to be in the breakaway, a bike that's a slightly heavier because it's an aero time trial type frame. He spent a lot of time in that time trial position. So he went out there with a plan today to win the race, and he executed it almost perfectly, and still having the legs to lead out the sprint, open the sprint and take third. I guess that's why he's former European and world under-23 road champion.
and he's definitely one guy that's going to be enjoying this rest day. And on the subject of the rest day, the race organisers are using this to do another batch of COVID tests. So they reckon, I think it's around approximately 650 odd people that are getting tested again. Are you what have you made of the whole coronavirus pandemic throughout this race so far? I mean, we saw on, I think it was stage 8, fans getting precariously close and not everyone wearing masks. What have you made so far?
Oh, that's potentially a disaster. The fans should never be allowed on the course like that in the current situation. Like, it's great for the race. It's the atmosphere we're used to on the Tour de France. It's great for the photographs and everything that goes with it. But for the riders and for the riders' health, it's a massive risk, and it shouldn't have been allowed to happen. I know they said you couldn't drive up the mountains, but if you could walk or bike, you could go up them. Well, there was stacks and stacks and stacks of bikes piled up all the way up the climb. The people were so close. They were as close as any other mountain climb. And in this current environment, that just shouldn't have been allowed. The ASO need to do something about that. They need to give the riders far better protection. And it's probably a good time. You know, we've said it for many years. The riders are in a difficult situation on the mountains. They can't see the road. They've got fans running all over them. We've seen many incidents over many years on the tour from spectators. Right now is a good time to reset. You know, like, we've got sport going on all around the world with no spectators in environments that you could control spectators, yet we've got the Tour de France going on and the spectators are there out of control. And, you know, I thought it was really bad. It was tidier today, much tidier today, so maybe they've taken some action. But, yeah, I felt really sorry for the riders, the teams who are doing everything to protect themselves, and then you got the fans just being allowed to do that and really put the race in danger. So I wasn't very happy.
Yeah, I definitely think it was a worrying sight for the organisers. And like you say, perhaps they have tightened things up, which would be good. We saw a lot of the teams putting messages out on social media encouraging fans to wear masks and so forth. So hopefully there'll be no positive tests that come out of that big batch. And looking ahead to after the rest day, what are you expecting heading into the climbs later in the week?
The next few stages, on paper, they look really easy. Pancake flat, day after the rest day for sure. Some guys will come out as fresh as a daisy and they'll just want to rip it up right from the start, and we may see a break go, although we haven't seen many go at all on this Tour de France. One day we didn't have a break away all day, which I think's really, I don't think I've ever seen it before. But it's on the coast. And when it's on the coast, you get generally one thing, wind. And if you get cross-tail wind, big crosswinds, it's going to be really tough and it could be brutal. And you won't win the Tour on those stages, but you can certainly lose it. So I think the next few days, who's going to control the race? Now the pressure's on Jumbo-Visma to control the race. They've got the yellow jersey. They're going to have to be really careful who they let go away. The race is still pretty tight. And if you get someone that is 2, 3, 5 minutes down, all of a sudden get 5 minutes back, that can change the whole dynamics of the race. So I think that, I wouldn't like to be Tony Martin over the next 5 days. Wout van Aert, the Danish boy on the team, they're going to be doing a massive amount of work, and they'll be hoping for some help from the sprinters teams maybe to keep it together.
In terms of predictions, in our last video, we touched on who we were backing, I guess, for the yellow jersey, who we thought would take it. Has yours changed? What are you thinking now?
Well, you back your man, don't you? I think you had a better pick than me. I said Dumoulin, and I still think he's a slight chance, but it is a slight chance because Roglic is such a huge favourite right now, and the way he's riding, the crosswinds aren't going to bother him. He's strong as an ox, and he'll be in position and protected by his teammate Van Aert. They're brought up in the crosswinds. I think he's certainly going into stage 10 is still the red hot favourite to take the jersey all the way to Paris. Pogačar, he's probably the second favourite right now, the way he's been riding. But as I said earlier, I'm not sure if he's got the team to really help him. But these guys at times seem like they don't need a team. The other rider, I think, Egan Bernal is probably third favourite right now. But I think he will continue to get better and could get really, we could really see him fly on those last couple of mountain stages, and also the uphill time trial will play a big part.
So yeah, it all kicks off back again on Tuesday night on Sky Sport 3. Usual story, all the highlights there as well. So it should be a really, really interesting few weeks to see if Roglic can get himself into Paris. Any last thoughts from you, Del?
No, I'm actually looking forward to the rest day probably as much as the riders. The coverage is fantastic on Sky Sport, but boy, I woke up, stayed up last night too long watching the stage, and then up early this morning. The racing's been fantastic. It's going to be a good tour, and just hope everyone comes out of the COVID testing overnight safe and well, and we carry on seeing a great race, because the first 9 days have been something quite special.
Absolutely. There's definitely been plenty to talk about. So hopefully we'll get another one of these videos up in time, either for the next rest day or to even wrap up the race at the end. But yeah, thanks again for your time, Del, and cheers for watching, everyone.